Before you leave, hit subscribe, like, and drop a comment, because once the story starts, there's no turning back. The rain was coming down hard when the jogger found the body wedged beneath the old railway trestle on the edge of town. At first, police thought it was another overdose. This part of the Midwest had seen plenty. But when the flashlight beam swept across the man's wrists, bound neatly with zip ties, everything changed. Detective Mara Ellison arrived minutes later, boots sinking into mud, the smell of rusted metal and wet concrete hanging heavy in the air. The victim's eyes were open, frozen in a stare that looked less like fear and more like surprise. His name was Daniel Price. 36. High school history teacher. No criminal record. Married, no kids. And according to his wife, he'd stepped out after dinner to clear his head and never came back. Within hours, the case was everywhere. A respected teacher dead under a bridge. No wallet. No phone. No obvious signs of robbery. What bothered Mara wasn't just how clean the scene looked, but how deliberate it felt. Whoever did this hadn't rushed. They'd taken their time. The first break came before sunrise. Traffic cameras caught Daniel's car swerving erratically across 3 intersections an hour before his death. Then another clip surfaced, grainy but clear enough to make out a second figure climbing into the passenger seat near a closed gas station. The footage ended there. No plates. No faces. Just a shadow sliding into Daniel's life. Mara's partner, Detective Lucas Shaw, leaned over the screen. "That's not a stranger," he said quietly. He didn't resist. As the investigation tightened, the pressure mounted. Daniel's wife, Emily, broke down during questioning, insisting her husband had no enemies. But neighbors told a different story. Late-night arguments. A man seen waiting across the street more than once. Always the same dark sedan. Always gone before anyone could get a plate number. Then came the name that shifted the entire case. Aaron Cole. Former corrections officer. Recently fired. And according to internal prison reports, the last person to escort an inmate named Daniel Price, same name, different man, to death row visitation 5 years earlier. That inmate had been executed 18 months ago after maintaining his innocence to the very end. Coincidence didn't sit well with Mara. They found Aaron Cole living alone in a rundown rental on the outskirts of town. Inside, the place was obsessively clean, almost sterile. No photos. No clutter. Just a calendar on the wall, every date marked with thick black excess leading to one circled day, 3 weeks away. When questioned, Aaron didn't flinch. He claimed he'd never met the victim. Said he'd been home the night of the murder, asleep. No alibi. No witnesses. But his hands shook when Mara mentioned the railway bridge. For 48 hours, they had nothing solid. Then the lab results came back. Fibers from Aaron's jacket matched material found under Daniel Price's fingernails. It was enough for an arrest. Headlines exploded. A former prison guard turned killer. The narrative wrote itself. Aaron was charged with first-degree murder. As the trial date loomed, prosecutors painted him as a man haunted by the prison system, snapping under the weight of guilt and rage. The jury agreed. When the sentence was read, Aaron didn't react. He just closed his eyes as if he'd been expecting it all along. Years later, on death row as Aaron's final days approached, Mara reopened the file. Something still didn't add up. She requested one last search of Aaron's old rental house, now scheduled for demolition. When the crew pried open a locked storage room hidden behind a false wall, they found a box wrapped carefully in plastic. Inside were Daniel Price's missing phone, and recordings that proved Aaron Cole had been set up. And the real killer was still out there. By the time Mara Ellison stepped back onto death row, Aaron Cole had exactly 17 days left to live. The corridor smelled like bleach and old concrete, a place scrubbed clean but never free of what had happened inside it. Aaron looked different now, thinner, paler, his once rigid posture softened by years of waiting. When he saw Mara, something flickered in his eyes. Not hope. Recognition. "You found it," he said before she could speak. Mara sat across from the thick glass, heart pounding. "Why didn't you tell us about the recordings?" Aaron gave a bitter smile. "Because no one was listening. And because the truth gets you killed faster than silence." In the days leading up to execution, inmates lived by a strict rhythm. Lights on at 5. Meals weighed, counted, watched. Every movement logged. Every conversation recorded. Aaron described it as living inside a ticking clock. Some men screamed at the walls. Others slept non-stop, trying to erase the countdown. Aaron did neither. He stayed awake, replaying every decision that had led him here. Mara listened as he explained Daniel Price, the other Daniel Price. A man executed for killing a teenage girl, despite evidence that never fully added up. Aaron had escorted him to his final visit, watched him cry, watched him swear he'd been framed. And after the execution, Aaron had started digging. That was when he found the recordings. They were made secretly on Daniel Price's phone, conversations with a man who promised to fix everything if Daniel kept quiet. A man whose voice distorted through a cheap burner phone, but whose language was precise, legal, calculated. Someone who knew the system inside out. Mara felt the pieces shift. You think he killed the teacher to clean up loose ends? Aaron nodded slowly. The real killer needed someone to blame. Someone with a record tied to death row. Someone easy to hate. Outside the prison, the investigation reignited. Lucas Shaw followed the audio trail, enhancing the recordings, isolating speech patterns. The voice matched one person with chilling accuracy, Assistant District Attorney Victor Hale, the same man who had prosecuted the original Daniel Price case and built his career on death penalty convictions. If this story has you locked in so far, now's the time to subscribe, because what comes next is where everything starts to unravel. Evidence began disappearing. Files went missing from the courthouse archive. A key witness recanted, then vanished. Lucas was followed home one night, a black sedan idling outside his apartment for hours before driving off without plates. The pressure was mounting, and so was the clock. Back on death row, Aaron's final days unfolded with cruel precision. He was allowed longer visits now. A chaplain came daily. A guard offered him his favorite meal, like kindness could balance a life. Aaron declined. He said he wanted a clear mind. Mara made one last visit, this time with devastating news. We know it was Hale, but we don't have enough yet. And the state won't stop the execution. Aaron leaned back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Then promise me something. What? Don't let him use my death to bury the truth. As Mara left the prison, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're digging where you shouldn't. Moments later, Lucas called, breathless. Mara, Hale's office just filed an emergency motion. They're moving Aaron's execution up. 3 days. If you're feeling the tension right now, hit like and subscribe. Stories like this don't come with warnings, and you won't want to miss how this ends. With time collapsing, Mara took a risk that could end her career. She leaked the recordings to a journalist known for exposing wrongful convictions. The story went live within hours. Social media exploded. Protesters gathered outside the prison gates. International pressure mounted. Inside his cell, Aaron heard the chants echo down the corridor. For the first time in years, he smiled. But late that night, as guards made their rounds, one of them paused outside Aaron's cell longer than usual and slipped something through the bars. A note. The truth won't save you. And if this chapter shook you, make sure you're subscribed, because the final chapter delivers a truth no one saw coming. The execution was scheduled for 12:01 a.m. Death row changed in the final hours. The noise faded. Doors closed softer. Even the guards spoke in lowered voices, as if the walls themselves were listening. Aaron Cole sat on the edge of his bunk, hands folded, staring at the gray concrete floor. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Not because of fear, but because sleep felt like surrender. The note still burned in his pocket. The truth won't save you. Mara Ellison stood outside the prison gates as protesters chanted Aaron's name. Cameras flashed. News vans lined the road. The leak had worked, partially. Victor Hale was suddenly unreachable, his office dark, his phone disconnected. But the state refused to stop the execution without a direct confession or physical proof tying Hale to the murder. They were minutes from losing. If you're still watching right now, subscribe to the channel, because this is the moment where everything breaks open. Inside the prison, Lucas Shaw moved fast. A sympathetic guard had tipped him off. Hale had visited the prison hours earlier, claiming official business. Lucas tracked the visitor log and found something chilling. Hale hadn't gone to Aaron's cell. He'd gone to the evidence wing. Lucas called Mara. "He's destroying whatever's left." Mara didn't hesitate. She released the last card she'd been holding. A recorded phone call, Aaron's final conversation with the journalist, uploaded publicly with timestamps, names, and one critical detail Aaron had remembered at the last second. A rare phrase Hale always used in court, embedded in the burner phone audio. The internet did the rest. Within minutes, armchair analysts, linguists, and former prosecutors confirmed it. The voice was Hale's. Inside the prison, the warden received the call at 11:58 p.m. "Stay the execution." Immediately. The needle was already prepared. Aaron was escorted back to his cell as the countdown froze at 3 minutes to midnight. He didn't celebrate. He didn't cry. He just exhaled, long and slow, like someone finally surfacing after years underwater. And if this twist just hit you, hit like and subscribe, because the truth doesn't always arrive in time, but when it does, it changes everything. Victor Hale was arrested the next morning trying to cross the border. In his car, police found Daniel Price's phone backup drive and handwritten notes outlining how to redirect suspicion toward Aaron Cole. He'd chosen Aaron because he knew death row erased credibility. Because the system would finish the job for him. At trial, Hale denied everything, until Mara took the stand and played the recordings in open court. The same courtroom. The same confident voice. This time, the jury didn't look away. Hale was sentenced to life without parole. Aaron Cole walked free 18 months later, a wrongfully condemned man released into a world that barely remembered him. Cameras asked if he was angry, if he wanted revenge. "I just want people to know what happens in those final days," he said, "and how easy it is to silence the truth." For a while, it seemed like justice had finally landed where it belonged. Then, 3 months later, Mara received a call she would never forget. Another body had been found under a railway trestle in a neighboring state. Wrists bound with zip ties. No wallet. No phone. The victim was a former inmate who had testified against a powerful prosecutor years earlier. On the concrete wall nearby, written in black marker, were 4 words. "The truth won't save you." If this ending just made your stomach drop, subscribe right now, because the next story goes even deeper, and you won't want to miss what comes next.